I'm Lynn Lynn. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Yeah.
All
I was
right, good
gone last.
morning. Good
Yeah.
morning. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's
So
good.
we're going to get started now. Good morning, everybody. We're so happy to have Zoe Alameda here today from the Alameda Family Funeral and Cremation in Cupertino. Um, this presentation I've been lucky enough to enjoy before, and we wanted to bring it to our group today. So I'm going to welcome Zoe and Skip. Do you want to add to that at all?
No, I've known Zoe for quite a long time, and she does do remarkable work on presentations like this. So I think you're going to learn a lot.
All right, and we're recording and we're ready to go, Gabriel.
Okay, so hi, I'm Zoe Alameda, and I like to say I'm a travel agent for the final destination. And it's a little bit of a joke because I'm a funeral director. I own a funeral home and crematory in Saratoga, and it's the Alameda Family Funeral and Cremation. And our family has been in this industry for 4 generations and over 100 years. So we have our own funeral home with various rooms for various sizes of service, and we have our own crematory here in our building in Saratoga. And I have two of my team members with me today, Myra and Saul. Saul is going to be my wingman and run the slideshow. So thank you for asking me to do this presentation. I do it quite often, especially for social workers, hospice, senior roundtable, other organizations. I just did it at Saratoga Retirement Community because this is a difficult subject that people really need to know. And if you have pencil and paper, if you can go ahead and write down any questions, and I'm happy to answer them at the end. So funeral history, as we know, since the beginning of humans, we've always had a ritual for caring for our dead. Of course, this is of the Egyptians. We all know about the Egyptians. Another bit of funeral history is embalming. I don't know if you know what embalming is. I'm going to explain, but I want to tell you the history of it. Embalming actually started and was perfected in England. And then it came to the United States during the Civil War. President Lincoln was very enamored with the fact that he could prepare the young men so they could be sent home when they died in the Civil War. And he was also embalmed himself and made the train journey so at every train depot, people could come pay respects to him on his way home. So that's how embalming. And so what is embalming? Embalming is surgical preservation of the human body. It is not required by law. So if any mortuary tells you that it's required, that's not the case. They could have a policy that says you can't do a viewing or a funeral unless the person is embalmed. And that is a personal choice on whoever's managing or owning that mortuary. We don't have that protocol here. If somebody doesn't want their loved one embalmed, we can do an alternate preparation called sanitary care. But an embalmer is a person that does a surgical procedure. It takes them 4 years to get their license, so 2 years of school plus a 2-year apprenticeship, and that's in California. Funeral history. These are my grandparents at one of the original funeral homes that we had in downtown San Jose. So we used to be called undertakers because we undertook the job of arranging a funeral. And it evolved from the home parlor into the funeral home. So the parlor was, of course, the living room, and people used to be laid out there. And then they gave it to the person that made the cabinets in town, because that's the person that made your casket. So on the day that you were going to the cemetery, the cabinet maker would bring the casket to your home. The body would be placed in it, and then usually they walked to behind a funeral coach or a wagon on their way to the cemetery. So we've evolved from them. We've gone from a home, and if you saw 6 feet under, you know that the older funeral homes were in somebody's house, and the undertaker or the funeral director or the embalmer lived there. We've evolved now to separate building. Death care is a complex process, and I've listed all of the things that factor into it, and There are a lot of things that people need to consider when you start thinking about what's going to happen to you on your final destination. So when the funeral home gets a death call, and in the industry we call it a first call. Funeral homes and mortuaries are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it doesn't matter when we get the call, 2 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, we're available. We take down the basic information, and I've listed it here. And this is all really important information, especially, is the deceased ready for transfer? Some family members, if they're going to do a direct burial, they're going to ship the person to Ohio, to the family cemetery, or they're going to do a direct cremation. They may not have any other time to say goodbye. So sometimes they want that person to remain in the bed, in the hospital bed, at the skilled nursing facility until everybody in their family can say goodbye. Okay, I get a lot of questions asked about organ, tissue, bone, and body donation. If somebody wants to donate their body for science, like to UCSF or another teaching institution, that has to be done well in advance of your death. It's not going to happen after you die if you didn't already set that up. You also need to have an alternative plan if they're not willing to accept you. You may be healthy, and then 40 years, you're not healthy, and the school that you signed up for isn't willing to take you. So you have to have a plan B. Vital organs are only taken when somebody's on life support. So that person is considered brain dead, but their body's still functioning. Those vital organs, once they're harvested and removed, cannot lose oxygen. So it has to be set up well in advance. So the recipients are set up, they have to have their lab tests, their medical teams in place. Once everybody's in place, the person is disconnected, the heart stops, and then they harvest the organs and it goes out to whatever institution for the recipients. Now, people can donate things that they're not on life support, such as eyes, skin, veins, heart valve, cornea, bone tissue. So people can be of use for other people and donate tissue, bone, and without donating vital organs. Okay, so an unattended death. Hospice care is actually an unattended death, but they're in attendance because the hospice nurse and the hospice doctor medical team are following the patient. Sometimes people die at home unexpectedly. So that's considered an unattended death. And if the family goes over, they go to see grandpa every Sunday, they find him sitting in his frumpy chair, looks like he passed away, they need to call the local authorities, the sheriff or the police department. They can say it's a non-emergency call, but it's up to the dispatcher whether or not they're going to dispatch the fire truck or the ambulance. And then between the police department or the sheriff, they're going to determine with the coroner whether or not that person's going to be taken to the coroner's office or released to the mortuary. Now, if the family tells the coroner and the police officer, you know, my father's had congestive heart failure, he has a cardiologist, he has an attending physician, we just took him to the doctor last week, the coroner will probably say, okay, let the mortuary do the transport, tell him it's a coroner's hold. We then contact the doctor, we get the history and the causes of death, we submit that to the coroner, they give us a release number, and then we're on our way to doing whatever it is the family wants us to do for the final destination. The coroner gets involved when there's accidents, when there's a suspicious death, and they are a county police officer or a peace officer, and they make the determination on who's going to go to them, who's going to get an autopsy, or not get an autopsy. Some families insist that they want their loved one to have an autopsy, and the coroner doesn't think that is necessary, so it doesn't happen. Then the family can choose to have a private autopsy. But I listed some of the reasons why the coroner gets involved. And we have a very, very busy and a very professional coroner's office in Santa Clara County. So once the person dies, we have to register the death. I cannot cremate, bury, or ship a body until I register the death and make the death legal. It takes about 1 to 3 business days. The process is, as soon as the person passes away, we submit to the hospital or the doctor or the hospice a death certificate worksheet. We need to get the causes of death back. Then we marry it up with the personal information. So how did the person spell their name? What's the social security number? There's some family history, so parent's name, mother's maiden name. Where's the place of final disposition? And it's all done electronically now in all 50 of our states. So death certificates are necessary for these things. They're $24 each in Santa Clara County, going up in January to $26 each. Some people get one. Maybe the assets have already been distributed. Maybe the assets are in another country. Or sometimes I've had people order as many as 60 or 70 death certificates, depending on how many assets they have. After I register the death, the county of death issues a disposition permit. Again, I cannot cremate, bury, or ship the body until I register the death and I get this permit issued. We print it from our computer. Certified copies of the death certificate are printed at the county. They stay with our county health department for 90 days, then they move to the county recorder. So this is what I need to cremate, bury, and ship the body. Okay, so person's passed away, you've called your local mortuary, and now you need to meet with them. It's called an arrangement conference. Plan on bringing in your loved one's social security card, even if you think you know the number, because I've had many people fill out the death certificate worksheet, give us the wrong social security number, and then we have to do an amendment for them. And it slows down the process of transferring assets. A driver's license, passport, or other ID of the person that's making the arrangements, and then also maybe of the person that you're making the arrangements for. So again, you see how the name is spelled. We have a lot of people from other countries in Santa Clara County, and sometimes their driver's license and their passport names are a little different. They might have a dash. The names might be smushed together. There might be no dash. They might have left off a couple of letters or added a couple of letters. So it's always a good idea to bring that in so that we can verify information. If the person was in the military and honorably discharged, the DD 214, especially if the person is going to be buried at a national cemetery, or if the family wants honors. A recent photograph, we need that for body preparation, but family also might want to include one that they want in an obituary notice, either in the newspaper or on the funeral home website. And if we're going to do any kind of viewing, funeral service, or visitation, we're going to need clothing. For a woman, I need clothing up to her neck, and I need it down to her wrist. Same thing with a man. When we do the embalming, if we do embalming, we go through the carotid artery of the neck. So we want to make sure now, most embalmers, do a successful job of covering it up, but we still would like something up to the neck. Elderly people bruise really easily. So we'd like to have something that goes down to the wrist so that people aren't seeing the bruised arms. So these are some of the things that the family should think about at the arrangement conference. An arrangement conference can take 2 hours or more. It can be shorter than that if the family knows exactly what they want to do, but a lot of times families don't know what date they want the service. Maybe they know the date, but then we have to confirm it with the cemetery and the church and the priest or the pastor or the monk or whoever. So there's a lot involved, and there's a lot of telephone calls, a lot of back and forth. So families should plan on spending at least 2 hours for the arrangement conference. This is a picture of our crematory, and this is a family that chose to have a funeral service in there. I don't know if you can make out, we have a screen, so the family was going to do a video slideshow. They had the flowers arranged around the casket, which is actually an organic casket. It's a basket casket. And it's on the device that we use that raises that container up to the height of the loading table. And I don't know if you can make it out behind the flowers, but you'll see it in another slide. This family chose to have the funeral service in here, and they chose to witness the person going into the cremation chamber. Witnessing the cremation is not any different than watching a casket being lowered into the grave. The chamber door is open, an electric arm will push the container in and the door will close. The family does not see any incineration. But just like watching the casket being lowered into the grave, it puts closure. We do a lot of ethnic services, so we do a lot of Asian Indian services, and they always have a witness cremation to follow their religious service. We also do a lot of Buddhist service. 50% of our Buddhist families cremate with a witness cremation, 50% choose burial. Most families, 95% of my families, instead of doing those collages on poster board, they're doing a video slideshow. And 95% of our families are doing live streaming. Both our crematory and our large ceremonial room include live streaming. This shows a Catholic service. Of course, we do Christian services, we do Jewish services, we do Islamic Muslim services. But I just wanted to show a picture of a Catholic service. We take the casket to the church, and that white cloth is called a pall, and that represents the baptismal garment for Catholics. So this just shows different types of services. This picture shows what we would consider graveside service or maybe a direct burial. A direct burial is no viewing, no visitation, no services. We simply place the person into the casket. Once we get the disposition permit, the cemetery tells us what time and date is convenient for them, and we drop off. Now, the family can go one step further, a little bit more, and they can do a gravesite service. So they don't do anything at the funeral home. There's no viewing, no visitation, not necessary for body prep unless they'd like to have the body prepared and dressed. And then their pastor or friend or monk or somebody says words at the cemetery. And they can choose to be there for the lowering of the casket or not. And this is usually when military honors are done. So if somebody was honorably discharged from the Navy, the Army, the Marines, whatever branch they were in, they're entitled to have honor services. Now, if the person's not going to be buried at a cemetery, the honor services can be done at the church, the funeral home, or some other place. But most of the time, it's done at the cemetery. I talked about shipping a body. We forward remains throughout the United States and internationally. Because we're in the heart of Silicon Valley, I do a lot of international shipping. I just shipped 2 people to Iran, 1 person to Egypt, and 1 person to Serbia. That's within the last 2 months. So shipping human remains, if we're going to ship in the United States, we coordinate with the receiving funeral home. So the family has to have a receiving funeral home, and we're usually shipping that person to Ohio or Florida or New York because the family has cemetery property there. If we're shipping somebody internationally, which is called repatriation, we have to get a hold of the consulate or the embassy of the country that we're shipping to. They have requirements. They're all pretty much the same. It takes us anywhere from 3 to 10 business days to ship a body internationally. We have to coordinate with the airlines. The airlines has to coordinate with every point of depot. So most of the time internationally, we don't go direct. Like for the Middle East, we usually use Turkish. And so we always have a hub or a stopover in Istanbul. And unlike human passengers, your layover has to be more than 6 hours. I think with a human, it's 2 to 3, but with a person that's repatriated, it has to be at least 6. So that person's going to remain at Istanbul in cargo for at least 6 hours until it catches the next flight to Iran or Egypt or wherever it's going. And so the airlines has to make sure that each point of depot agrees to accept human remains. And then they have to contact the person who's willing to accept those remains once they arrive in the destination city. So it's a little bit complicated, but we do it all the time. And again, it takes about 3 to 10 business days for international shipping. It takes about 1 to 3 days to do domestic shipping. Other types of funeral service would be a direct cremation. Direct cremation is no viewing, no visitation. Cremation happens at this funeral home usually within about 10 business days. Cremated remains are usually given back to the family. Sometimes the family will have a memorial service. So memorial meaning in memory of, the body's not present. And I thought this was kind of nice because this family chose to do it at a park, and that's a lovely setting. But you could do a celebration of life at somebody's church, at a restaurant, a park. And we'll talk about cremation. Cremation is the process of reducing the body to bone. So it's not ashes. Everybody calls them ashes. It's cremated remains, and cremated remains are crumbled bone. So receptacle for the body, it's very simple. It's either metal or wood. And what type of metal and what type of wood factors into the cost. So if you have let's say a particle board casket that's got material over it, it's a wood casket, but of course it's less expensive than solid mahogany. Now you can have a hardwood casket that's stained to look like a mahogany, and the price is going to be much different than a mahogany casket, but you're not getting a mahogany casket. A metal casket can be painted or made to look like copper, but it's not copper, and of course the price is going to reflect that. So we have caskets of every different color and every different price point for families to choose. Other types of receptacle for the body would be if somebody wanted to do a funeral service, not buy a casket, have a simple cardboard container. So they have the option of a rental casket, which has a cardboard interior. So the deceased never touches the exterior of the casket. And this is the cardboard container. If somebody chose not to go with a casket, we have to place the body in a simple, rigid container, and that would be the cardboard container. And we have a lot of families that actually use that cardboard container. They bring in a cloth, they decorate it. It looks quite nice. So our cost for a cardboard container is $95. Receptacle for the cremated remains. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of types. So I showed you one that looks like King Tut, made out of glass. The one in the middle, that would be what a simple, durable plastic container would look like if you didn't choose a more permanent urn. It's wrapped with paper, and this family chose to have people sign on it like you would a cast that personalizes it. So I thought that was a very clever way of personalizing somebody's cremated remains. Disposition of cremated remains. Disposition means the placement of human remains. So disposition of cremated remains are all these things that you see bulleted point. In California, legal disposition of cremated remains are these things. However, there are no cremation police. That being said, Susie Smith's family decides to take her to the residence, but Susie Smith loved Lake Tahoe. So they took Susie Smith's cremated remains and they scattered her in Lake Tahoe. That is a misdemeanor, but it's done all the time. Could be a hiking trail, it could be the golf course. But just letting you know, it is a misdemeanor, but people do it all the time. And, actually it's kind of comforting. I have families that say, my mom just loved Poipu in Hawaii, and that's where she said she wanted to go. My grandfather really loved hiking up to Mount Tamalpais, and that's where we're going to take him. So it can be a really personal thing. But again, I'm letting you know it's a misdemeanor, but there are no cremation police. Some alternatives would be to take your cremated remains, incorporate it into a concrete, and they create a barrier reef. I'm not sure that we're doing it on the West Coast. It's mainly done around Florida. Now, if your husband didn't give you a 2-carat diamond, you can turn him into one. And that's what we call heirloom jewelry, because they're actually made from heirs. Now, at this moment, I don't think they can get the stone any larger than 2 or 3 carats, but they managed to make it in different colors. So you can get green, blue, red, of course, not colorless. And there are quite a few companies that are doing it. And it doesn't just have to be cremated remains. People can have hair, so you can do it with a living person. You can be shot out into space. And again, there are tons and tons of alternatives. I just found out from a company, I believe they're in Bulgaria, and they take cremated remains and they make them into pencils. So they say that a human remains, if they got all of them, would be 250 pencils. So they're actually the graphite in the pencils. And then if somebody's artistic, they can use the pencil to create a picture. They can be incorporated into glass, and they can be placed into a balloon and go off into the sunset. So, and they can also be incorporated into ink and be tattooed on your body. So this is a picture of my crematory, and we call it the fountain room because we have a wall fountain. Prior to the 1980s, funeral homes were not allowed to have crematories. They were only in cemeteries, which is why there's not a lot of funeral homes that have crematories. So they were usually in some kind of a utility building, and not a lot of people at that time were doing witness cremations. But we have a large ethnic population that a witness cremation is part of their religious ritual. And again, we're getting more and more people that really want that closure, just like watching a casket being lowered into the grave. There's some other alternatives. So there's alkaline hydrolysis. It's similar to cremation. The body's reduced to bone. Bones are removed, processed, and placed into a receptacle. It's not fully accepted by the religions that do witness cremations, because they do witness cremations because they're doing cleansing of the body by fire. And the fire releases the soul or the spirit of that person. So alkaline hydrolysis would not be for them, which is why I chose a more standard computerized retort or crematory. However, we do get calls. People are curious about the process and whether we do it. The other thing, and in 2027, it will be allowed in California, it's terramation. So you can have your loved one turn into compost. So if it was the full body, you would get back about 1 to 2 cubic yards of soil. That's about 1 to 2 pickup trucks full of soil. Now, most families don't accept back their loved one's soil, according to the company that's up in Washington. Normally, they take maybe a 10 or a 25-pound sack of the composted soil, and then the rest goes to land conservation. So, forest land and so forth. So again, it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to have somebody go from human remains into compost, and that's called terramation. Cemeteries. So we have cemeteries that are owned by private, public, religious, not-for-profit, government, or military. Within cemeteries, they may have a Muslim section, a Christian section, a Catholic section, a Jewish, a military, a section for babies, a section for cremated remains. It depends upon the cemetery. We have 2 green cemeteries close to us. One is Parisma in Half Moon Bay, and we have Fernwood in Marin County. Green burial is no embalming. The container that the person is put in needs to be organic, so a shroud or an organic, like a basket casket, and no grave liner. Okay, what are your consumer rights? When you walk into a funeral home and you start talking about wanting to make arrangements or having some kind of service, we need to immediately give you a general price list, and if it applies, a casket price list. So if you walk in and you said, I just placed Dad into a skilled nursing facility and they told me to find a mortuary and we just want direct cremation, I don't have to give them a casket price list, but I do have to give them a general price list and a retainable consumer guide for funeral and cemetery purchases that's produced by the Department of Consumer Affairs. All mortuaries are required to give you price information over the phone. They can't tell you, oh, you need to come in and get the price list. No, you need to be able to shop around by picking up the phone and comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And if your loved one had come in and made prior arrangements, the funeral home is to show you those prior arrangements before they start with the final arrangements or the arrangements that are going to be done today or tomorrow. So the Department of Consumer Affairs Guide has all the rules, regulations, and the terminology for this industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about pre-arrangements. I only have one slide on it. It's called pre-arrangement, pre-need, or pre-planning. People can choose to go into a mortuary, spend about 2 hours with the funeral home, plan out your burial, your cremation, or being sent to another country or another state. We can write down all the information, such as your death certificate information, your personal information, and get everything, filled out, organized. We know what church, the name of your pastor, whether you want music, all that can be organized. And then you keep a copy and we keep a copy. You can go one step further and you can pre-fund it. So there's some options. POD means pay on death account. So you can set it up at your bank. And that money's locked in. It's called an irrevocable. And so if you had to go on public assistance, they don't consider that as an asset, because that is strictly irrevocable and is for burial purposes or cremation purposes. You can set up a pre-need trust. You can purchase funeral insurance. Funeral insurance usually has a guarantee component. So if you make your funeral arrangements 10 years ago, the price isn't going to be raised to you as long as it's apples to apples. And also, I like to remind people that you need to make pre-arrangements for your pets. I live in a senior condo complex, and each one of our courtyards has 1 or 2 cats that got abandoned because the condo owner died and the children didn't want the pet. So please think about making pre-arrangements for your loving friends. So the Department of Consumer Affairs is the law of the land for the funeral home. So if you have any issue with whether or not you think a funeral home is operating or mortuary or crematory is operating unprofessionally, you would go to the Department of Consumer Affairs and file a complaint. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I like to have this saying up. I was actually talking to my team, and they're a little younger than I am, and they don't remember the Tuesdays with Maury. It was quite a popular book, and then it was turned into a movie. But this was a quote from Tuesdays with Maury. So, did I overwhelm you? Do you have questions?
I just wanted to point out that I'm a customer of Zoe's. I've got a prearranged funeral. Everything's paid up and everything, and she's going to take care of me when I'm done. And I highly recommend her because they handled everything very professionally and very easy to understand, and no muss, no fuss. And also, I think most of you know I come from an aviation background, and when I was building up time, I worked at the Piper dealership in Concord at Buchanan Field, and they did scattering of ashes, and I was either lucky or not lucky enough to be able to do that. And I'd take a single-inch paper Cherokee up, and most of the time it was over the ocean. And unfortunately, you have this really tiny window that opens. It's not even a window. It's like a 6x6 vent. And they would the ashes would come in a tin can, kind of like a Nestle's Quick can, with the pop top on the side. Well, a lot of the newbies tried to use that and just stick it out the window and shake it. And when it did, all the ashes came back inside, which was not a good thing. So what we did usually was take the ashes and put them into a paper bag, and then we could just stick our arm out the window, and the airstream would disintegrate the bag and the ashes, and nothing would come back into the to the airplane. But
That was brilliant. That happens to people when they scatter, when they go out on the ocean. They forget about the wind factor. And so open the bag and they start to sprinkle and it goes all back up in their face.
Yeah.
So we always give them a little bit of warning when we know they're going to do a scattering at sea.
Yeah.
But that was a brilliant idea to drop the paper bag.
Yep.
Okay,
Lynn,
You have a question?
Hi Zoe, this is Lin, and my mom actually was your client, and unfortunately, she passed away in September. And we had your staff members come and pick her up. And so this is all, I was not actually a part of making the cremation arrangements. It was my father and my sister. But now, after listening to your presentation, it's great knowledge to know that there's so many different ways to be made in a pencil or a tattoo or a jewelry. So my question is, and I'm sorry, I have two offer due dates, and so I'm just on and off the meeting. People calling me. So to go back, do you guys make those? Do you show everybody all those options and you make the arrangements, or are those outside vendors?
Those are outside vendors. We have urns that we have on display, so if family needed an urn at the last minute. We also have urn catalogs. The urns can be ordered and they can have personalization. But most of these things, I do have brochures from the companies that make turn cremated remains into semi-precious stones. But most of this is just information I get off the internet. People kind of have an idea of what they want to have done. Sometimes people don't know. They take the cremated remains home and then, they're Googling and they find out about the pencil guy. Or they decide they want to have a tattoo. And yeah, so mainly it's families that come up with it. But, if the person wants us to research, certainly we can do that.
Oh, okay. So for future clients or referrals, just to let them know what your consultation, do you book a consultation initially with them to kind of go over everything that could be done, like the options, or is that something that someone would, have to find out on their own?
Well, I will tell you that we have a hard enough time just getting the answers that we need legally to get. Families are so overwhelmed.
Okay.
Some families come in with the impression that we're trying to upsell. I never upsell. I
Right.
know families kind of have an idea in their mind what they want to do, what they want to spend. So we have a hard enough time getting through the personal information on the death certificate, trying to figure out if it's going to be a direct cremation or if they want a service, what church they want to go to, what pastor they want to use, what day of the week, did they buy cemetery property? We try to give them options. Do you want limousine, motorcycle escorts? Do you want us to help you with the flowers? They are exhausted by the time they leave with all of the questions and all of the answers that we need to have before we can move forward with the final destination. If families are curious, I can give them options, but it's really difficult because, again, families are spending about 2 hours with us and they are exhausted when they leave. They are overwhelmed. Their head's about ready to burst open. We have given them all the information I just
Yeah.
gave you and more.
Yeah.
Not all
No,
of
I
it.
understand. So the last question is, which areas do you go and retrieve the bodies? Like what are your I know that my parents, because we literally lived down the street from Alameda Family Services, that was the first choice, somewhere closer. But do you go just within Santa Clara County or outside?
Okay, we can go all over the state. So
Oh,
we have resources for transport companies in every city and every county. A lot of times we do the transport ourselves. It's called a long haul, and I will send somebody on a long haul down to LA, up to Eureka, and we get ship-ins. So obviously, if it's a ship-in, another mortuary is handling the first call or the initial call at death. They're doing the body preparation and they are either sending the body to me in a transport container or in the casket. So yes, we all over. And I do get people every once in a while shipped in from other countries.
Okay. I'll let someone speak, but I do have a follow-up question. So
Okay.
other people, yeah, thanks.
Okay, Carlos, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to thank you for doing this, but also question number one, how your parents or your grandparents got involved in this cremation or burial? And also, is cremation more popular nowadays?
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear about your grandparents.
I'm asking you, well, first of all, I say thank you for doing this. And I said, your grandparents, did they get involved?
Oh, how,
And is cremation more popular nowadays?
okay, two questions. Well, it's very interesting. My grandfather, who died at 97, and he was the first generation. He was first generation here from the Azores, which are islands off Portugal. And if anybody knows anything about the Azores, they do a lot of ranching and farming. And my great-grandparents had a dairy farm in Crow's Landing, which is in Central Valley next to Newman. And my grandfather read a lot, and he had read about the milking machines. And he and my great-grandfather would have to get up the crack of dawn before the sun came up and milk all their cows. And then they had to do it at the end of the day. My grandfather also was there when we had the flu pandemic around, I think it was 1910 or so. And a lot of the farmers and other ranchers got sick. So those ranchers and farmers that weren't sick went over and milked their cows. Because if anybody knows anything about a cow, they need milking twice a day. It's very painful. So my grandfather tried to talk his father into getting milking machines because, they could turn the machines on and they could get more cattle. And my great-grandfather wouldn't hear of it. So being a hot-headed young man, he ran away from home, ended up in Sacramento, ended up as an apprentice embalmer, and here I am. So the other question about cremation. Yes, cremation is, I think in California, we are well over 70%. However, I do a lot of cremations because I serve a lot of ethnic families. So when people are measuring cremation rate, they're measuring the direct cremation, no viewing, no visitation, no services. The cremations I do, the majority are with the service because it's an Asian Indian, Hindu, Sikh, or Jain, a Buddhist family, a family that wants to add on a witness cremation. But yes, cremations are, I think they're projecting cremations in the next maybe 5 years to be over 80% here in California.
Thank you.
Micklin. Micklin. Micklin.
So maybe Linlin can do her follow-up question.
Oh, okay. So, you mentioned being able to service all over California, and I guess the first thing is that that's wonderful. But the follow-up question would be, what do you think makes people want to come, let's just say from LA, if there is another service that's similar to yours closer to LA? Is it because they want to be with their spouse or loved one?
That's a good question. People choose a mortuary where they live, work, and worship. So somebody in LA is not likely to come to me, even though they may like me a lot. The only reason they come to me from LA is because they have cemetery property here.
Okay.
So that's usually the reason. And that's the reason why I'm going to send somebody to Ohio or Florida, because they have family cemetery plot there. Yeah, because quite frankly, it's more expensive if you're going to send up your uncle to be cremated because you like my mortuary and you know that I have an inside crematory. It's because you have to pay either for me to drive him up or fly him up. And so it's going to be more expensive to do the service out of town than in your town. So you're right. The options are better for the family to choose a mortuary where the person died. However, people that come to me are coming to me usually because they have property at Madronia Cemetery, Gate of Heaven, Oak Hill, one of the cemeteries in our necropolis. It's called Colma, Skylon. But yes, it's because they have an attachment here, and it's usually because this is where they're going to be buried.
Okay, so buried. So like because I'm just, economically thinking if a family, let's just use the LA example, they have a plot of land at the gate of heaven, or maybe they have not a plot of land, the niches, glass niches there, and they want to be cremated. So could they be cremated closer to a place in LA and then have the ashes flown in or driven in or whatever by a family member to the gate of heaven niche?
It would be less expensive for the family to have their loved one cremated where they passed away. And
Uh-huh.
they could drive the cremated remains up and do an interment ceremony,
Mhm.
or they could mail through the United States Postal Service, which is the only way that you can mail cremated remains. They can mail them directly to Gate of Heaven as long as Gate of Heaven gave them permission and they're willing to accept them. And I don't see why they wouldn't if they have the property and they've done the appropriate opening and closing of the niche.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it definitely is less expensive to have the services where the person passed away.
Mhm.
So sometimes if a family passed away in LA and they had a church in LA, they had cemetery property here because that's where their parents are buried and there's room for that person. A lot of times they'll have the service down in LA and then the funeral home will drive them up to Gate of Heaven. They won't even use a funeral home here. And then they will either drop off or stay for a gravesite service. Sometimes they'll ship to me and then we'll make arrangements for the family to either do a gravesite or a funeral service here or at their church and then go to the cemetery.
Ship, you mean the body or I'm sorry to be
Or
so.
shipping the body to me, either driving it up to me or
Oh, okay. 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 All right. So, okay, got it.
so anytime you're on an aircraft, you might be flying with a dead body. I made arrangements for a gentleman to go to Iran, and I was actually flying out to Africa, but I had to go on Turkish Airlines, and Turkish goes San Francisco, Istanbul, and Istanbul, you take a flight out. That gentleman was on my flight. I had made arrangements to send him to Iran, and he was down below in cargo. So Southwest is also a favorite of us in the industry. So if any of you fly Southwest, you're probably flying with somebody's loved one underneath you.
What about a freight airline like FedEx or UPS?
As far as I know, I heard a rumor that FedEx might be doing cremated remains, but I have not received any confirmed information. It's only the United States Postal Service.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I had to deal with is, I've got artificial hips and I've got a defibrillator. So, during the cremation, they have to be, well, not during, but before the cremation, they have to be removed. I guess the defibrillator can explode if it gets into the cremation process. So,
So thank you for asking that question. So anything that runs on a strong battery, so like a pacemaker or a defibrillator, that is removed prior to the cremation. Now, any prosthesis that's within the body that doesn't run on a battery is removed after the cremation. So
oh,
cremation process and the body is reduced to bone, and we do what we call the sweep out.
hmm.
We use a metal detector over, usually with large prosthesis, they can see it, but we still use the metal detector and we remove any of the medical prosthesis. Some of our families will actually cremate their loved one in a wood casket. So sometimes we're removing hinges and screws and things like that, but we remove all the metal and it goes to a metal recycle company. And they sort out between the different titanium, stainless steel, all of that.
I might not want to use her discount program because I understand they use the ashes for a kitty litter. So,
That was from that movie, The Falkers, when what was his name? Oh my, I love that actor. Anyway,
Adam Sandler?
who?
Adam Sandler, was it?
I think it was Adam Sandler, but the father, the soon-to-be father-in-law. So
Uh,
Which movie was that?
the
Charlie.
Falkers. So it was this goofy guy, and I forget the gal that played, but he went to meet her parents, and it was a disaster. And
Oh yeah, Meet the Parents. Yeah, with Ben's
Oh, Robert De Niro.
no, but yeah. But
yes,
that
and
was
his mother's urn or father's urn fell off.
yeah, yeah. And
I think it was the soon-to-be son-in-law that did it, and then the cat promptly went over and peed on the ashes, or the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
that was
Carlos.
So McLean has a question, and I like to have a question too.
Yeah,
okay.
I do. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I couldn't get off. You are in Santa Clara County?
Yes, I
I,
am.
okay, I didn't get the name of your
Well,
organization.
my last name's Alameda, and I did not realize when I changed the name of the funeral home. We used to be Saratoga Cupertino Funeral Home. But with so many funeral homes being bought out by public corporations, I wanted to distinguish what we did, funerals and cremations, and I wanted to distinguish we were family. But a lot of people don't realize that I'm not in Alameda County. And we do get a lot of calls from people in Alameda County because there is a funeral home called Alameda Funeral and Cremation Services.
Okay, and your name is what?
Alameda.
What was it?
Alameda, Alameda. My first name is Zoe, Zoe.
No, I mean the name of your
Funeral
funeral
home,
home.
Alameda Family Funeral and Cremation.
Okay, great. The reason I was asking, Dignity has they're in Santa Clara County, one of the biggest here, and they do I get them almost every month about their presentations they do at different restaurants. Do you do that?
No, because they're doing that to sell pre-need.
Oh,
That is why they're hosting a dinner, because their person that is selling pre-need is funding that, and the company is funding that because they hope to write up pre-need policies.
okay.
And so the person that's hosting that is making a commission on writing up those policies, and they're an employee of Dignity, and that's Dignity's insurance, and that's how that person's making a living off of the commission.
I get you. Okay. And the other thing,
I have one slide on pre-need because I think it's important for people to know about pre-planning, but I don't push selling pre-need.
okay. And the thing that you had mentioned about the scattering of ashes, I did not know that was a misdemeanor or illegal. I had my cousin, well, I didn't do it, but her daughter had her ashes spread at Puget Sound. Now that's a different state. So are you saying just California or anywhere in the US is a
I
misdemeanor?
only know California's laws. I don't know what other
Okay.
states' laws are, but in California, it's a misdemeanor if you are doing anything other than what is allowed by law. And scattering remains, okay, so you can scatter cremated remains on land, like on our public parks, but you have to get written permission from the park authority. Now they'll give it to you and they'll tell you specifically where you can do the scattering. You can scatter cremated remains if you have a friend that has a cabin up in Tahoe and you really want to be scattered there. As long as your friend gives you written permission because he or she is the landowner. You can be scattered over water as long as it's 500 yards from shore, which means the sea. It's not the Delta, it's not Lake Tahoe. But that being said, it happens all the time.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
there are no cremation police, but if you are caught, it is a misdemeanor.
when I
Okay.
was scattering, we always went over the ocean.
Yeah.
So
So
Well, Puget Sound's ocean.
yeah.
that person was a cremains disposer, and he or she had a license to do that. And so just like the companies out of Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Half Moon Bay, they're cremains disposers. So they get the disposition permit that will state scatter at sea 500 yards beyond the coast of San Mateo County. And then the boat goes out of Half Moon Bay. They do the scattering. The cremains disposer, that boat captain, then has to put the coordinates, the date, the time of the scattering, and that has to be refiled within San Mateo County.
Mm.
So the person that did scattering by air, if they have a cremains disposer license, would have to do the same thing. They would have to give the coordinates, the date and time the scattering happened, and they'd have to refile that disposition permit in whatever county they thought they were scattering over.
Mm.
Mm.
I have one final thing. And I love that poem. Could you go back that one slide? I want to take a picture of it.
Which slide?
The one with the poem
Oh,
ended with.
it's what from Maury, yeah.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. That if you hadn't read the book, it was a really good book, and it was a long time ago. It was a good movie.
Carlos, you're up.
I have a silly question. Can somebody bury their loved one in their backyard?
No. So human remains.
How about pets?
I don't think that's legal either. Human remains have to be placed in a burial park, so a designated cemetery. There is a company called Better Forest that was advertising, and they were trying to partner with a funeral home, and they reached out to me, and my representative at the Department of Consumer Affairs said, don't. They're using illegal language, because at that time they were telling people that you could be buried in the forest. Well, you can't be buried anywhere unless it's in a designated, park, that cemetery park or funeral park. Now, Better Forest changed their wording. You're going to be scattered around, incorporated in the mulch around a redwood or, a cedar or something. So they changed their language, but yes, you cannot be buried anywhere other than a designated burial park.
Now, who determines what a designated burial plot is?
That is the Department of Consumer Affairs. They have to get a license.
Oh, okay.
They have to be licensed.
Some people
Have to be licensed. I can't just, if I wasn't a licensed funeral home or a licensed funeral director, I couldn't go across the street and open up an office and start making funeral arrangements against the law.
So, question number one thing that we do when somebody passes away is to call the police or you?
You only need to call the local authorities if somebody dies unattended at home and they weren't under hospice care. So you went over to visit your grandmother and she's still in bed and she's cold and you're pretty sure she passed away in her sleep. You need to call the local authorities. Now you can tell them it's a non-emergency, but it's up to the dispatcher whether or not they're going to send the emergency personnel. Obviously, if she's still warm but she's not responsive, you obviously want emergency services to come. But yeah, that would be an unattended death. If the person dies at home under hospice care, hospice takes care of the legal requirements of pronouncing the person, and they've been following the person all the way, even though they weren't in attendance when the person died. If the person dies in an ER, it's a coroner's case. Now, it doesn't mean the coroner's going to take the body, but there has to be a reason why the person suddenly passed away. It's called a sudden death. And if it's a sudden death, the coroner's involved. So it could be somebody who, let's say, had prostate cancer, been followed by an oncologist and his attending physician. But the family got concerned because he wasn't breathing right. And so they rushed him to the hospital and he died. Well, the hospital doesn't know his history and neither does the coroner. So the hospital then has to get in touch with, or the family gets in touch with the mortuary. We call the doctor gives us causes. We submit it to the coroner gives us a release number, and now we can take the body from the hospital.
Wow.
Person dies at home, and the local police and the coroner determine that there is a doctor involved. They will release to the mortuary, and they will say it's a coroner's hold. So we can't touch that body. All we do is place the body into our morgue, our cold room. We can't embalm, we can't do sanitary care until we get a coroner's release. So we contact the patient's or the deceased attending physician. We fax over a death certificate worksheet. They give us what they assume the causes of death because the person had, prostate cancer or something. And then we submit it to the coroner. The coroner gives us a release number, and now we can go forward.
Sorry, one more question. You mentioned that we can call you anytime, 24/7. So if somebody passes away, that person has to be overnight in the same place, or you can take the person away the same night?
I get calls at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, sometimes 3 or 4 calls from 3 or 4 families. And if the family wants us to come right away, we come right away. Some families don't. They want us to come in 2 hours because people want to say goodbye, but No, as soon as the family wants us to transport, we transport. Doesn't matter what time, day or night. And they get transported back here to my facility in Saratoga, and I have a very large morgue or cold room.
What about a murder when there's something involved where there's police work and before they get to you? What's the difference there?
So the coroner is supposed to provide to the mortuary within 3 business days, either pending or a cause of death. So obviously this person has been murdered. It looks like the girlfriend stabbed him. So they take him to the coroner's office. Coroner's office does an autopsy, and they transfer to the mortuary in 3 or 4 days that this person died from stab wounds or, whatever. Now, if the person, they don't know, they'll transfer the document to me in a way that I can register the death, but it'll say pending. Now, sometimes so usually the coroner releases the body to the mortuary within like 1 to 3, 4 business days. It depends on how busy they are. But if they're still doing some kind of investigative work, they could hold that body for a while.
Mm.
It upsets some of our ethnic families because, well, one, they don't like their person chopped up. So, doing an autopsy is basically cutting a person open and taking out all the viscera or the organs, taking a portion of it and the brain, a portion of the brain, sending it to pathology, and then putting everything back and basting the body, not even really doing nice surgery. So a lot of ethnic families don't like that, especially our Jewish and our Islamic families. But the coroner is a peace officer. If the coroner says, I'm doing an autopsy, they're doing an autopsy.
Okay, Lynn, you have a question?
Yeah, no, this is super interesting. It's like giving me ideas. So if somebody have you heard of the 5 wishes?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if it's appropriate to put in like, okay, if I wanted to be made into a pencil. I mean, I'm just giving an example. I kind of look like a pencil today with my colors, but if I wanted to be made in 100 pencils, do I put that wish in something like the 5 wishes or in a will or in a trust? Where would that be going in?
Right. So if you have the 5 wishes books, you can write down all of your wishes or your what you would like to have done with your remains as your final disposition, and that would give your family an idea. You could go to the mortuary of choice and you can sit down with a funeral counselor and make your arrangements, and you keep a copy and the funeral home keeps a copy, and you don't put it in your safety deposit box. You put it somewhere where your next of kin knows where it is, because they're not getting to that safety deposit box until you're cremated or buried or shipped. So they're not going to know about that. So you would want the family to know. Most funeral homes have like a pre-planning book. We have one. When I do presentations, everybody gets one. And so it gives you everything that I've talked about, pretty much. And then it also has a section for you to write down your personal information for the death certificate and also what your wishes might be. And so that's where you would say, I want to become a pencil, or, you know what, I'd like my cremated remains to be turned into a semi-precious stone and given to all my grandchildren.
And then keep in mind that the 5 wishes is not a legal document. So you need to do something more specific, like a power or I'm
So an
sorry.
advanced healthcare directive.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah,
Advanced healthcare
that
directive
thing.
is important for everybody to have. And then you should also, if you get sick, get a pulse. A
Yes.
pulse is Pepto-Bismol pink paper that is with you at all times. And so if emergency personnel tries to resuscitate you or put you on life support or whatever, it says whether you want it or not. An advanced healthcare directive gives somebody, if you're incapacitated or you can't make the decision, that you give that right to somebody else to make medical decisions for you. Now, you can give somebody the power of attorney for your finances, but an advanced healthcare directive is only about your health. And it also states that that person has the right to decide your final disposition and organ or tissue donation or autopsy. And so that's really important to have on hand. And then that just gives that person the legal right to make medical decisions and funeral decisions. But if you have certain wishes, you want it to be turned into a pencil, you want to be turned into tattooing, whatever it is, then you would write that down, in a document that would say what's going to happen to your remains at your final disposition. Do you want to be cremated? Where are your cremated remains going to go? Do you want to be buried? What cemetery? Do you want to go back to the family cemetery in Florida? Where is that? What's the name of the cemetery? So you need to have two documents. One is your final arrangements, and the other is the Advanced Healthcare Directive, which everybody should have.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, one more question. As series specialists, obviously, we are walking into a lot of homes. In fact, today I'm going to one where there are people that should probably be talking about these arrangements, but it's a hard topic to bring up as their agent. You don't want to come in, but it is an important topic. So, do you have any ideas how we would, as real estate agents, perhaps bring up, your services and maybe it would be a better discussion with your children and to say that maybe your family should start this family discussion because there are some families that it's taboo. They don't want to talk about, like in my own family, I'm talking about that. Don't even want to talk about death, because they think it's not good to talk about it. And then until things happen and then, that person is not able to make decisions. So
Right. Then they come to the funeral home and they look like a deer in the headlight because they have no idea what their loved one wanted. Yes, it's important to bring it up, but it's a difficult subject, not only for the children, but also for the parents. Sometimes the parents want to talk about it and the children are going, no, I don't want to hear it. And then sometimes the children want to talk about it and the parents are going, you just want my money. So, I mean, I'm just giving you some funny examples, but
yeah.
you can always, we have these pre-planning books. It's, very simple. You can always just leave one. And, when somebody goes into a skilled nursing facility or assisted living, they are asked point blank, do you have a mortuary that we would call in case of an emergency? So you might phrase it like that. Have you thought about what mortuary your family should call in case of an emergency?
And by the way, we're going to be having a session on that March 31st with Libby Boatwright. She's a chaplain, but also a certified financial planner, and she's going to talk more about end of life and the steps and everything we need to do.
Right, that's important. But we have these pre-planning books. You're welcome to take as many as you want, and you can hand it to the person. I mean, they don't have to use us. It's just a good idea. It gives them what all their options are. It talks to them about a little bit about a will and probate and trust. So it kind of goes over everything. And then there's a section where they can write down their personal information and their wishes and cemetery property and next of kin and all that.
Okay, so is there a charge for them or there's
No.
Oh, okay. So just we could come and pick up
I'm doing my fourth printing, so I have from second and third edition, and soon I'll have a fourth printing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I guess
we have out all the time to hospices, community events. Yeah, and
what do you think is an appropriate time to fill out those? I mean, for me, I'm like, I'm ready to fill it out just because I want my children to know, what I want to do, when I go to the other side, but not everyone's like me. So I don't know when is a good time to, when are you typically finding people saying, okay, let me fill this out or wanting to fill that out?
well, I don't push pre-need. I know people in my industry say that, when we do the follow-up, at that time, we should be talking to the family about making their arrangements. I just don't feel, I feel like the family's overwhelmed and they just don't want to come off with, trying to write up business. But I know at that time, families should be thinking about it because they just made arrangements for their loved one and they know that it was overwhelming and that I'm asking a lot of questions that were posed to them that they never thought about. And I tell them, I'm almost like I'm a travel agent for the final destination. I'm almost like a wedding planner because people put a lot of energy into planning somebody's funeral or celebration of life like they would a wedding, but they only get 3 or 4 days. And a bride gets at least 6 months to a year. But they're putting together a slideshow. They're putting together an e-blast, letting everybody know when the funeral's going to be. They are, ordering flowers. They're figuring out a reception, and it's a lot.
I know I'm doing that right now. So I know. Yeah.
And also, I explain to people, sometimes out of guilt, we live in a very transient society, and a lot of people have children that live in Hong Kong and London and Florida. And sometimes they don't visit their parents as often as they should. And I've seen families argue over how much they're going to spend on a casket. And they're doing it out of guilt. They're buying an expensive casket when the family that lives here that's been seeing mom all the time knows that she wouldn't want a solid bronze casket. But the son that was living in Hong Kong and didn't see her as often is demanding they buy the bronze casket because it's a guilt thing. And so writing your wishes down tells your family exactly how much you think they should spend. And if you don't think that you want a bronze casket and you want them to use money that they would have spent on a bronze casket to put money in your grandkids' college fund or to go have a party, you should make those wishes known.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Michelin, we'll
Yeah,
have one more. Go ahead, and then we'll be
yeah. This
wrapping
is
up
just
for
a
the day. Thank you.
comment that I had talked to Skip about some time ago by Tom Bruce, the other talk, and it approaches that whole subject about funeral wills, trust, and and estate planning. And that was the best video I have seen on the subject, and that was December of 2014. And
Uh-huh.
SCRS has not been able to produce the video, but it was very, very good. And of course, you can always buy the book. It was uh, uh, produced by AARP. But the
Oh,
video was good because it was great. It was just great.
yeah, it's very important for people to think about it, even though it is a very difficult subject. And so I commend your organization for inviting me to talk about it because it's a subject that people really don't want to think about. But they should.
Hmm. Correct, correct. I'm just curious too, how do you get or what metals do you use to make a semi-precious stone out of the remains?
Okay, so most of the companies are asking to send about a cup worth of the cremated remains, which is bone. And then just like when they make, semi-precious stones, they put it in a chamber and it's put under an immense amount of pressure. And
Hmm.
somehow it turns into a carbon-like stone. I'm not really
So
sure
it could be
what it does,
a
but
sapphire, it could be a ruby, a pearl, or whatever.
well, they don't do those. No, it's
Oh,
it's like a cubic zirconium,
oh, okay.
and they have it in different colors, but they call it a semi-precious stone.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All righty. Go ahead, Skip.
I was just going to say, anybody else? Cool.
So thank you so much, Zoe,
Thank
for
you.
this presentation. I think everybody really learned a lot, and new information.
And if anybody wants,
Janine, hi
if anybody
Janine,
wants a
you
tour,
got a question?
if anybody wants a tour, they're welcome to come to the funeral home. And
I
if we
wanted
don't
to say
have
thank
anybody
you.
in the crematory, we're happy to show them that. I have people that are curious and want tours all the time.
The nice thing is, and that's very good to know, Zoe, because when we're out talking with our senior homeowners and the families of senior homeowners, we will extend that invitation to families when appropriate, and it's very important for us to have that connection. So we can say, oh, we'll give you a call. We just had a really good conversation with this family, and we gave them your information. So be on the lookout for them. We do
Thank
that
you.
a lot. We're um we're the resource of the resources for seniors. So and their precious asset, which is their real estate. So the
Right.
number one asset, of course, is ourselves, right? Our own selves. And you work with the number one asset for anybody and everybody.
Right. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Nope, that's right. So
For having-
again, thank you so much for your time, everybody. We're gonna have a great weekend, a great Thanksgiving. We're gonna be off next week.
Then in
And but I'll
December,
probably put out, well, oh, I'm just gonna say I'll probably put out a bulletin anyway. We'll see. We'll see how ambitious I get. Go ahead, Skip.
I was just going to say we're off next week, but then December 2nd, we're going to have overcoming resistance to exercise in older adults. So we're going to have you getting up and moving, but that should be interesting. And yeah, everybody have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
Julie, I don't know if you have a minute after this, but if not, it's okay. I can call you or
Oh, go ahead. Okay,
oh,
I'll call you right away, Lynn, and then
okay.
Carlos, go ahead. You're muted. Hit the button. There.
I just wanted to mention that, of course, I know that you have a list of all these vendors and contractors that you invited here for the webinars. But do you have a list, or do you have some kind of roll up with cards? So if I call you, you would help me
Mhm.
finding a specific vendor or contractor, or can you make that available for us?
Yeah, that's something that we're working on. But yeah, you can always, if you're looking for somebody specific, reach out to me because if I don't know somebody offhand, we have all of us that I can reach out to get a referral resource for almost anything. And yeah, we're working on, so one of the pages on the website is going to be a resource page. So that is a work in progress.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Uh,
Lynn, yeah, I'll give
oh,
you a call when we're done.
oh,
Is
or I
that
mean,
good?
if you don't mind staying on here, or would you prefer?
Or
It's
no,
just
go
a
ahead. Go.
technical question. Yeah, sorry. I mean, for those, it's not a secret question. It's just how do I look up when my series license expired, or not license, but certification, because I want to make sure that I'm on top of it.
Oh, that's a good question for the
Yeah.
crew. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
SRES.
Yes.
So your SRES, you
You
should
go
have,
on the website, the
yeah.
SRES website, and you'll be able to see there's a renewal page, and you can check that out, to see when you're due.
Oh, okay. So
Okay,
on here. Hmm.
Lynn,
Yes.
tell me, when is the last time you went on the SRES portal?
Right now.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
why.
Yeah. So
Okay.
listen, all the instructions are on in the bulletin, everything. And here's the link to the portal. And
Oh, okay.
a lot of times I'll put snippets in here
Okay.
on really good things that are on the SRES portal for us to access.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you guys can think about this too. Maybe coming soon, January-ish, early 2026, we'll have a separate episode that I will put together for the highest and best use of us to access our SRES portal. Because the people at SRES back east, I mean, they don't really have time for this.
Careful.
They don't have time for this. They don't have an inclination. But
Mm,
I do. And there are
mhm.
so many good things and resources on our portal that nobody's utilizing. So I can help you guys with that. And then
So,
also
mhm.
when you go on there, if you have a question, you can't find anything. There is the 800, it's like an 888 or something number. You just call that number. You
Okay.
just call them, you get them on
Okay.
the phone, and you say, hey, This is my question. I need the answer to it. But you
Just
gotta
so you'll
be,
know, it's not that simple. On the
well,
800, listen, on the 800 number, you're going to go through several different people until you get to where you want. That 800 number is for NAR, not SRES. So you'll
Okay.
have to wiggle your way through. Be patient, and you can do it.
yeah.
But
Okay.
if you can do it with the SRES website, that'll be more gooder. And
Okay.
you can always use that little magnifying glass up there to try to find something that you're looking for specifically.
Yeah, I'll put look up membership because I just want to see when it expires. And when it does, before it expires, it's just paying something. We don't have to take any continuing education
Correct. Yes,
class.
but you need to renew, or if you lose your membership, you only have 2 months to get it recertified plus a $50 penalty, and then after that, you're going to need to take the SRES class over again. So you don't want it to expire, whatever you do. They'll
Okay.
send 3 emails to remind you to renew.
Oh, good. Okay. So they'll let
And a
us know.
snail mail. They'll send you a snail mail
Oh,
too.
good, 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 good. Okay. Oh, I could download my certificate. Okay, well maybe that
Yes.
will tell me when I still have to figure out my logo and stuff, but that's not your problem. Oh, it says wait, it says 9/12/2024. Uh-oh. Does it mean that I'm expired?
Keep looking.
It just
All
visit
right, here's the easy way to tell. On your locate an SRES agent at the top right, the bar, it click on that and then type your name in. If your name doesn't come up, it's expired.
Ooh, locate an SRES agent. It says why use, you mean in the magnifying glass?
Well, you could do that too, but if you just do they find an agent and
Huh,
type your name in,
huh. Okay, I don't even see find an agent. Member
um,
home. Let me just type in
uh,
my name because sorry to take up time, but I just
well, it's
I haven't
important.
gotten any emails to me about renewing. And
Are
so
you are you logged in, by the way?
yes, I'm
Okay.
logged in and that's why I'm able to
Well, if you're
see.
logged in the portal, you're active because if you're not active, they
Not
cut you out.
necessarily.
You can't log in.
All right. Work with an SRES agent. You see that at the top, the second one from the right.
Uh-huh. Second one from the
Drop
right.
down to find an SRES. Click on that,
Okay.
and then you'll be able to put your name in, and
Okay.
then see if you can pull it up.
Okay. So then something must have dropped in the system because so the designation is good for 1 year or 2 years.
Two
Or
years.
Oh,
Oh,
so then
well,
it's
you renew
2020.
every year.
You
You
renew
renew.
every year.
Oh, we renew every year. So it was 9/20 2024, which means it should be good for 2026. Is that correct?
Well, if you
Um,
renewed in September of 2024, you would have gotten an email in September of 2025 or even in August to renew.
To renew, okay,
Yeah.
but not the designation is every 2 years.
That never goes anywhere. I mean, that never
Oh,
goes away. They just want your
oh,
renewal every year.
oh,
The
so if I put in
designation
my
never goes
name,
away.
it says we were unable to find any results that match your search criteria, so I better call them. Okay,
yeah,
all
you
right.
better.
And here's
Okay.
another thing too. Go to the email that you use to connect yourself with SRES and just do a search for all your SRES invoices or emails. It's probably in there. You probably just didn't see it.
Okay, I'll just put series. All I get is all of your stuff. Okay, I'll look for it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you
And then
so much. Yeah.
Janine, you just did your designation recently, correct?
But it was CSA.
not SRES.
No, sorry, yes.
Okay.
SRES.
So in other words, I need to go through the 1-800 mess and then ask them. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you guys. Sorry.
Well, no
Uh,
worries. That's good to
and
know because
y-
that's why I was asking you, Janine, because I know with the
No,
CSA
I
stuff,
just went through
but
I just went through the CSA stuff, yeah, but not the SRES. But I
well,
do
that's what
have
I was wondering. Yeah.
I can't get into the bulletin and just
Well, the
walk through
bulletin,
exactly
you can
what
get the bulletin because that's me.
yeah.
That's I'm doing that. That's not them.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
So, but we have the next Skip's teaching the next SRES designation training in February, live virtual. So
January,
Jan-
January,
January
where is that
January.
and
posted
This is
on?
with,
February.
yeah,
So
but
where is that posted on the SRES network? Because when I go,
it's not on yet. It's
oh,
too
okay,
soon.
okay.
But if you want the dates, this is weird with it's going to be with CAR. They're doing it January 14th, which is a Wednesday, and then 16th, which is a Friday. So there'll
Oh,
be a day off in between, which they rarely ever do, but that's what they're doing. So January 14th and 16th is the class with CAR. Then I'm also teaching the class with SCORE, our local board. That's February 24th and 25th, Tuesday and
okay.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
And I
So
got
those will
two
be some
more.
really good opportunities for people to get their designation. And so just save the dates. And then and also for those of us that already have it, we'll do it again at a reduced rate for an update. So, all right, everybody. Good
Thank you
show.
guys
Good
Okay,
so
thank
show.
you,
much.
Julie.
And I'm sorry I missed last week. I was at Craig Proctor's in Anaheim, and next week I'll be in Texas to see the grandchildren. But happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thank
Happy
Thanksgiving,
you,
Lin
Thanksgiving,
Lin
Gabby,
everyone.
and
Everybody.
Julie, and
Anthony and
Skip for all you
Michelin
do. Bye
and
bye.
Yes.
Janine.
Bye, bye,
All
guys.
Bye
right,
bye.
everybody. Have a great weekend.
You too.